Ladies and gentlemen, kicking off the first stop on his world tour, our new president and prophet, Russell M. Nelson! You say you want some revelation, well, here you go. It's gonna blow your freaking mind.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Mormon News Roundup. I'm your humble host, D-Base. That's talent on loan from Kolob. This week I'm out of town, so I'm not going to be able to bring you live content, but I do have an exciting episode that's lined up for you, and it's regarding church finances. Probably the things in YouTube that get me the most amount of comments are things regarding the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and how it handles its finances. Because the church is not a transparent organization and is not externally audited, there's obviously a great deal of cabal and kabuki theater that goes along with the church and how it reports what it does with its donations. And there's a complete lack of transparency in the church. Now, I've posted a number of videos that discuss church finances. I've got a few slides lined up here for our presentation today where I will show you people who respond to me regarding church finances in the YouTube comment section and what my responses are to them. So some quick background. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was fined in February of 2023 $5 million for hiding its investments from the federal government and from the members. The church itself was fined $1 million and Ensign Peak Advisors was fined $4 million. I've got a quick video that is going to bring you up to speed in case you're not at all familiar with this very important LDS event.
Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and its investment firm have reached a settlement with the Securities and Exchange Commission. They will now pay a $5 million penalty to the U.S. Treasury. This comes after the federal government expressed some concerns about how the church was reporting its investment portfolio and values. The church and its investment managers say they regret mistakes made, and they worked with the government over a period of time to reach this resolution.
That's a quick basic sum up of what happened back in February of 2023. We've done a number of episodes, full length on the Mormon News Roundup, and we've discussed church finances, both the SEC fine and in other capacities. And probably one of our best episodes really that we ever released was episode 60, where we had Ryan McKnight from Mormon Leaks and also Colby Reddish, an attorney in Idaho. And we spent 3 hours dissecting all of the church finances in depth. I really feel like this is probably the greatest episode that we've ever recorded. It's certainly the longest one. It is 3 hours. And unfortunately on YouTube, a portion of that was copyright striked and we had to remove it. But if you listen to it on Apple Podcasts, the full length episode, it is absolutely tremendous work. And I really am proud of this particular episode. So we're not going to relitigate all of church finances. It's time to hop into those comment sections and see what people are saying and trying to defend the church's actions here. Here's a typical response to a video that I might post, either a full-length video, full episode, or a short or a 2 or 3 minute clip, in which people just say, well, some people are never happy. And quite frankly, I've seen this 1,000 times now. Instead of actually defending the church's fraudulent, greedy, hoarding actions, you want to instead try to talk about me. And that's why I say, nice try. This isn't about me. It's about the morally reprehensible act of lying about Ensign Peak Advisors for 22 years and doing nothing with hundreds of billions of dollars for a generation. Meanwhile, billions of humans suffer. People don't want to defend the church, and I understand why. It's because there's no defense that I've ever heard of this reprehensible and illegal activity. Instead, they want to say, well, you're just a whiner. You're a complainer. It's you that's actually at fault. No, this isn't about me. Here's another one. When you donate to the church or any charity, answer this question. Is it a gift or an investment? And my response is actually it's a donation. And that doesn't change the morality of fraudulently and shamefully hoarding $300 billion. And the James Huntsman lawsuit in particular brings out the fact that the church solicited donations for many years under the auspice that those donations were being used to alleviate human suffering. And the appeals court in the Ninth Circuit, three-judge panel, has upheld the fact that James Huntsman has alleged that the church has engaged in fraud, meaning that it turns out that very little of your donation is actually being used for humanitarian purposes. That's why his case is being heard with the full panel here shortly. So it doesn't matter whether your gift to the church or your donation to the church is a gift or an investment. That doesn't excuse the church from engaging in fraudulent actions. It doesn't excuse illegal behavior, and it doesn't change the morality of fraudulently and shamefully hoarding $300 billion. Now, just a quick other note, I'm getting all of my numbers here from the Widow's Mite report, and I'm not going to relitigate those particular figures. Again, we've released a number of full episodes on this, including episode 60, where I get more into the background of how I am coming up with these numbers and where I obtained them from. So I encourage you to go back and look at those. We're not going to discuss them today. Mike Boyd says that members are fine with how our leaders handle the finances. They do charitable things all over the world. If we had a problem, do you think we would continue to tithe at the highest rate of any church? Stop being jealous and do better in your own churches. So first of all, Mike, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and you don't speak for me. So don't say that members are fine with how leaders handle the finances. I'm a member and I'm not fine with it. So your first statement is fundamentally false. If you want to speak for yourself, go ahead. Never speak for me, Mike. Okay? Mike's second point is that the church engages in charitable activities all over the world. First of all, because the church is not externally audited, we have no confidence in the church's alleged humanitarian actions. Very few of the church's humanitarian actions can be externally verified. The church in the last humanitarian report claimed $1.4 billion in humanitarian donations. A very small percentage of that can actually be confirmed. Because the church is not externally audited, we have no confidence that they're actually engaged in charitable activities all over the world. I know the church claims it and has repeatedly trotted out videos and other things that show alleged church humanitarian donations. That is a claim that is almost wholly without substance. It needs to be backed up with evidence because there is no data and evidence to back up the vast majority of the $1.4 billion humanitarian claim from 2023. I do not accept such claims without verification. And Mike says, do you think that people, if they had a problem, would continue to tithe at the highest rate of any church? I do believe that Latter-day Saints are among the highest in donations. Latter-day Saints themselves are an extremely generous people. They donate huge sums of money, both to the church and to other humanitarian causes. But I think Mike is also misunderstanding the entire paradigm. If you do not pay tithing to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you will not go to heaven. There is a coercive element that comes behind paying tithing that Mike is failing to acknowledge. If you don't pay tithing, you don't get to be with your family forever. That's also another significant reason in which Latter-day Saints give a high degree of tithing. And finally, Mike says, stop being jealous and do better in your own churches. Hey, Mike, I'm not jealous at all. And many other churches are externally audited, which means that congregants can have actual confidence that their donation is not being mismanaged, squandered, or sunk into a clandestine hedge fund. The minuscule proportion of alleged LDS Church philanthropy is a drop in the ocean of its fraudulently and shamefully hoarded $300 billion. Scott Dean writes, if the church is sending my fast offering donations to other charitable organizations like the Red Cross, for example, then why do I not just donate the same amount I would donate to fast offerings to the charity I want to donate to and skip the middleman? That's an interesting question, Scott, and I just want to pull it apart for a moment. A point of clarification, I'm certainly not an expert in church finances, and I have no financial background or degrees, so I'm certainly speaking here as a layman. Allegedly, the fast offering is kept at the local level and is not sent back to church headquarters or to other agencies. Supposedly, the fast offering is a pass-through and is kept at the local level. In other words, you give money to your bishop or branch president, and he supposedly gives that money to other congregants in your local area. The church reported $750 million worth of fast offerings in the last humanitarian report. There is absolutely no way to confirm that these numbers are accurate or that the church is taking fast offerings and giving it to other people at the local level. We have to completely 100% trust the church in this respect. And I, again, only trust things that have been verified. However, regular donations to the LDS Church are purportedly given to organizations like the Red Cross. That's an extremely small percent of regular donations. The Red Cross is externally audited, meaning that you can have a much higher degree of confidence in giving a donation straight to the Red Cross rather than a donation to the church. The Widow's Mite report has pointed out that for every $1 that the church gives in confirmed humanitarian giving, even according to the church's own unverifiable internal humanitarian reports, it invests $122 in other investments, including real estate and the stock market. There's an incredible disconnect between donations and alleviating the human suffering on this planet. The bottom line here, Scott, is if you care about your donation being used for actual humanitarian purposes that can be verified, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a poor choice. That's really the reason, Scott, that so many people have started engaging in so-called trendy tithing. A lot of members acknowledge that the church is not doing anything reasonable with the donations, and people feel a great need to help their fellow man, which is why a lot of people like Jana Reese and others start paying tithing or other donations directly to humanitarian organizations that they can have confidence in that their donation is being used for good. Here's another one. My comment keeps getting deleted in the comment where you posted the Forbes list of the top charities, so I'm trying it here. When you actually read the article, you will see that the Forbes list shows the amount that charitable organizations received last year, not the amount they donated. Big difference. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a donor to at least 3 in the top 15, Feed America, Red Cross, and UNICEF, plus a donor to others on the list, including number 24, Catholic Relief Services. I always get a lot of comments about people who think their comments are being deleted. It takes a few minutes for comments to often post onto YouTube. I don't really screen very many of the comments at all, but there is a persecution complex that comes through my comment sections time and time again of people thinking that their comments are being deleted. I don't know what it is about Latter-day Saints. I don't know if this happens on other YouTube channels, but they are always so sensitive about a persecution complex. So my response to Michelle is, first of all, we discussed this issue in great depth in episode 113 and in many others. The church is donating less than 1% of its total net worth to charity per year on average, and it has shamefully and fraudulently hoarded almost $300 billion. Because the church is not externally audited, we have no idea whether it is actually engaged in most of the charitable endeavors in which it claims. You don't need to trust my opinion on these things. They're demonstrable facts. Now, regarding recently the Community of Christ and its financial insolvency or near bankruptcy, Brian tweeted out, "Go woke, go broke." And I kind of thought about this one, and this is kind of a rude response, but it's the best that I can come up with to Brian. Hoard cash, become trash. I know that's kind of rude, but that's the best couplet that I could respond to. And Brian says, true, hoarding cash is stupid. People should do what the church does and invest it wisely. And my simple response to Brian is, wise investment is recommended. Shamefully hoarding $300 billion, that's morally reprehensible. There's a big difference. Here's another typical comment. We are okay with what they do. The law of the harvest, and they are not the servant with the one talent. Long may they invest and make money. And once again, we have a lot of people out there who say, we are okay. Peter, you can speak for yourself. I'm a member of the church. Don't you dare speak for me. I'm not okay with the shameful hoarding of $300 billion. So just speak for yourself. And here's one more. I do speak for myself. The more we have is because we pay tithing. However, the Catholic Church has about 3 trillion. So let's hope we can make $1 trillion before 2050. Or is it you have plans on spending what is not yours? First of all, the Catholic Church has nowhere near $3 trillion in total valuation, probably somewhere around $70 billion, which makes the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I don't know, about 4 times as wealthy as the Catholic Church. And because the LDS Church engages in such a small level of humanitarian efforts relative to its total assets, the more money the Mormon Church gets, the more abject human suffering will take place on this planet. That money, as we've learned from David Nielsen and others, is not being used for humanitarian purposes at all. Enzyme Peak, which has been around for approximately 27 years, has only been dipped into twice, once to bail out an insurance company and another to build a $1.4 billion mall. So every dollar that the church gets is needed from other people, other places, people who have no access to clean drinking water, people who starve to death, people who do not have access to medical care. The more money the church gets, the more suffering will take place on this planet because such a small percentage of it is used to help other people. It's mostly just used to enrich the church and egg-headed stockholders in Tesla, Microsoft, and Apple. I want to actually play the short that goes along with this response so that you get an idea as to what people are responding to. And this is a recent episode that we had with Dr. John Lundwall.
I bet if we opened the books of the church and saw what they were really doing, the first people to leave the church would be the most ardent TBM Mormons. Because, when it comes to money, this is where the rubber hits the road. I don't need to know any other fact other than the church keeps everything hidden from their members. In fact, when the church released their numbers in 2023, it came with a message from the first presidency. Quote, as followers of Jesus Christ, we consider this, or the donations, to be both a duty and a joyful privilege.
Now, in the complete episode, John goes on to read the complete First Presidency letter that went along with the Church 2023 Humanitarian Report, which we don't have time to discuss today. But here's a response to John. This clown doesn't have much of a life. I almost feel sorry for him. And people always just want to, instead of defending the church and defending the church finances, instead of following the advice from, I believe it's 1 Peter chapter 3, where it says, always be ready to give an answer to someone who questions your faith. Instead, we're going to attack him. We're going to name call. We're going to do ad hominem. I promise you, I'm not selecting these comments for the most juiciest one or the most ignorant takes. These are just very typical YouTube video responses, and I just copied and pasted all of them into this particular presentation. People want to call people names instead of defending their faith. And for me, that is really sad. And I responded to that. Instead of feeling sorry, why not turn it around into something positive? Like and subscribe to my channel for more entertaining content. Thanks for your engagement. Now, if people repeatedly come into the comments and repeatedly call me names, I will eventually ban them because I don't want to be completely insulted all the time. I mean, there's no reasonable way to engage in dialogue with somebody who's just going to ad hominem attack you. Now, if you want to talk about ideas, I'm more than happy to do that. Repeated name calling, on the other hand, I just don't have time for that. Here's another one of the videos that really went viral. And I talked about the church's real estate purchases in Florida and how the church gained almost 700,000 acres in that state, and perhaps much, much more. And it got a lot of reactions. The Mormon Church's secret land empire, exploring their 700,000 acres in the United States. I do acknowledge that that is a slight clickbait of a title, but I don't think it's egregious. Let's check it out.
Did you know which is the largest landowner in Florida? It's not a big corporation or a wealthy individual. It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, more commonly known as the Mormon Church. This religious organization has quietly amassed 678,000 acres of land, valued at nearly $16 billion across the United States.
And I do acknowledge that when you watch a short, it's pretty hard to get the full gist of everything that's going on with that particular video. And that's why all of my shorts link back to longer content, because you really can't get everything that you need out in a 30 or 60-second clip. But let's hear some of the reactions that went along with it. It's very polarizing. Here's one reaction. I'm all for it. The church builds its wealth and can do $1.5 billion in humanitarian and donations annually and still doesn't go broke because it follows the teachings it teaches. That is, it saves money. That's genius. Haters are going to hate. My response is, first of all, the church allegedly donated about 1.5 billion in humanitarian donations this year. It's an allegation that is almost completely unverifiable. So don't just trot it out as something that's an established fact. You believe it. I understand that. I want to make sure that my beliefs conform with reality. So when someone makes a positive claim, I wait for evidence in order to accept that claim, especially that is something that is important as church humanitarian donations. Because the church is not externally audited, we simply don't know if the church reported and totally unverifiable claim is accurate. You know, Allred, it's not about hating. It's about waiting for evidence before claims are accepted, especially from an organization that has a history about lying about its finances. Why in the world would anyone want to accept claims from an organization that was recently fined for lying about its finances? That makes absolutely no sense, and no reasonable person should take the church on its word for its humanitarian report, absence of an external audit. Now, this is another explosive video that I had out there that got thousands of views, and it's one of the only videos that really discusses this particular issue. And it's the LDS Church buying a $260 million industrial park in Kent, Washington. Let me play that for you right now. That way you'll be brought up to speed.
Have you ever wondered about the connection between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and real estate investments? It might sound unusual at first, but it's a fascinating story. The church has an active role in the world of real estate, particularly through Property Reserve Inc., its real estate investment arm. This isn't just an incidental connection. It's a strategic, purposeful approach to stewardship and investment. Take, for instance, the recent sale of the Pacific Gateway Industrial Park in Kent. This sprawling property, which covers over 800,000 square feet and includes 6 buildings, was sold for a whopping $260 million. And the buyer? An entity affiliated with none other than Property Reserve Inc. This is just one example of the church's investments, a testament to its expansive and diverse portfolio. These investments are not just about financial gain, but also about participating in and contributing to communities and economies. So let's delve deeper into this intriguing story of faith, finance, and the Pacific Gateway Industrial Park. The Pacific Gateway Industrial Park, a sprawling 823,544 square feet property in Kent, stands as a testament to this unique blend of faith and finance. Born from the collaboration of Link Industrial Properties and Panattoni Development Company, this massive complex broke ground in May of 2020. It's not just the size that's impressive, but the features too. The park boasts a mix of grade level and dock high doors, trailer parking, and a generous provision for 588 vehicle parking stalls. The location is another feather in its cap, with prestigious neighbors like Amazon, Boeing, and high security. This industrial park is not just a hub of commerce, but a bustling community of innovation and productivity. And then came the sale, a whopping $260 million transaction that placed the property under the stewardship of an entity affiliated with Property Reserve, Inc. But this is not just any entity. It's the real estate investment arm of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A faith organization investing in an industrial park? Yes, it's an intriguing twist that adds a whole new dimension to this story. But what does this sale mean for the church and its investment strategy? The church's investment in the Pacific Gateway Industrial Park is not just a one-off transaction. This move is a cog in a larger machine, a strategic decision in a broad investment portfolio. Property Reserve, Inc., the real estate arm of the church, focuses on acquiring assets that generate returns, thereby supporting the church's activities. This strategy not only showcases the church's financial acumen, but also its commitment to long-term growth and sustainability. It's clear then that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not just about faith, but also about astute financial decisions.
I'm a real estate mogul. What? No, I am a real estate agent.
Now, here's a reaction that goes along with that video. Can't be a secret since there is a video on YouTube, Get a Life. I find that to be very remarkable and amusing. First of all, Bradley, I believe that my video on the church's huge industrial complex purchase in late 2022 is the only video on YouTube on that particular topic. I could not find another one. I think that I'm the only one who, quote unquote, reported on it. If I hadn't, quote, gotten a life, you probably wouldn't know about it. Now, I don't know that for certainty. Maybe you knew that before, but this wasn't exactly covered widely. That's why I did a little digging, and I do believe that the reporting here is accurate, but I've got the only video on it. So it's not about getting a life. You know what, Bradley? Instead of thanking me for bringing you new information that you found interesting and commented on it, you attacked me for some reason. Puzzling. Now, when I went and looked at Bradley Squire, I saw that he follows Quick Media. So now I really understand the lack of compassion, and it's honestly sad. And I ended it with, "You're welcome?" ? Let me know, Bradley, if you're grateful for the information that I bring to you free of charge. Another comment on this industrial Washington complex, which was the largest real estate deal in 2022 on the entire West Coast and one of the largest in the United States. What's weird about this? Can you think of a large endowment, either charitable or educational, that doesn't have an allocation to real estate? Look at any university endowment and you'll see the same. Trust me, I work in the finance industry. Endowments are big real estate investors. 100%, Heber, you're absolutely right. And I do like that name, Heber. Sounds like a good LDS name. I would respond to that by saying wise investment of endowments is highly encouraged and recommended. Shameful hoarding of $300 billion, on the other hand, that's morally bankrupt. And there's a difference between the two, and the church crossed over that threshold a long time ago. Now, I never said in the video that there was something weird about the church's purchase. What I said, it's unusual for a religious organization to be such a kingpin in the real estate market, especially in the United States. That raises questions, and that causes people to wonder why. It's unusual. I never said it was weird. Most religious organizations are generally used to giving away a high percentage of how much money that they have because they're focused on the needy and the suffering people on this planet. The church, on the other hand, engages in these incredible real estate moves in order to bolster its bottom line. That's why people are wondering why there's such a disconnect here. Here's another one from DRT. Awesome! If we follow the LDS Church's example of investing, we can all become wealthy. The LDS Church doesn't hide it. They teach that we should pay off debt and invest wisely. So we really want to follow the LDS Church's example of investing? You mean like fraudulently reporting your 13Fs and lying on your Form 990s and Deceiving the federal government, lying to your members, and engaging in a fraudulent scheme for 22 years. That's what you want us to follow, that example of reprehensible, illegal, shameful hoarding activity. And of course, those senior church leaders have taken absolutely no responsibility for that. You know what, DRT? I'm not going to follow that example because that's morally bankrupt. And he said the church doesn't hide it. I think that's a little bit disingenuous of a statement. And the reason I think that's disingenuous is that the church didn't cover this in its media outlets. For instance, the Church News, KSL, and Deseret News. The church frequently does not cover what the church does in its commercial ventures through its media outlets. It usually tries to keep these things on the down low, and it doesn't tell anyone about them. Now, I wouldn't say that that is secretly. I mean, that's borderline secret, but the church is not bragging about these purchases, and it doesn't brag about them or shine a light on them for a reason. It doesn't really want its members to know about it. If it did, it would talk about it through its own media. They never bring up these things in general conference, and sitting apostles never discuss these items. And for me, that really begs the question, why not? If you're proud of these purchases, why not tell people? And the reason that the church probably doesn't is because it doesn't want to shine a light on the fact that it's engaged in such an incredible proportion of finances in the real estate market instead of helping other people or even helping its own members. DRT says thousands of other Christian churches are going bankrupt every year. And that may be indeed the case, DRT. I'm not sure the exact numbers. I think a lot of Christian churches are going bankrupt for a number of reasons, including the secularization of society, the fact that tithing donators and other donators to other churches, including the LDS Church and the Community of Christ, are getting much older. The base of people who are willing to support religion is fading away. There's no doubt about that. And a lot of other Christian churches give away a huge percentage of their bottom line in order to help other people. That's something that the LDS Church simply does not. DRT concludes with, the LDS Church continues to grow and reinvest in the future. My response to him is, and I suppose you could also follow the church's example and shamefully hoarding $300 billion, or at least as much as you possibly can. Will you also follow the church's example by lying to the federal government and others about your assets for decades? I sure hope not. Another comment relating to that Kent, Washington complex. How secret can this purchase be if you know about it? There's already an indiscreet Bishop storehouse in Kent, Washington that looks like a small mom and pop mini mart from the front, but backs into a sprawling Costco-sized warehouse in the back. Given that this industrial park looks like a massive storehouse similar to the main Bishop storehouse in Salt Lake, and that this property already has multiple bays for semi-trucks and cargo fleet, similar to Welfare Square in Salt Lake City, suggests that this property is likely slated to become a regional distribution center for church donations. I already discussed the fact that maybe the word secret is slightly misleading. It is a slight clickbait. Again, it is not something that the church really covered or bragged about, and there are no YouTube videos that I'm aware of that discuss it. So it is in some ways, at least somewhat, hidden. I responded directly to this individual by saying, nice try. This church has owned this property for a while now, and it just took over the tenancy for all the businesses who were already there. So the businesses that were there were paying rent to the property owner. The church just changed over the property ownership, and now those businesses write a check to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The church is using this property just like it uses 95% of its properties for maximum income generation. It's fun to see you imagining the church using its massive wealth to alleviate human suffering, when in reality, it mostly just enriches itself. That's cute. See, I get a lot of these comments that say, well, maybe, just maybe, the church is using this for a clandestine humanitarian purpose, or it will do so in the near future. I can only tell you what the church is doing with it now and with what the church does with the vast majority of its holdings, and that is to make money. It's not being used for humanitarian purposes now, and I see no reason to believe that the church will use the Kent, Washington industrial complex in the future for humanitarian purposes either. Couple more here. Old news. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints purchased this property in December 2022. Existing lease contracts were retained, which can run for 5 to 10 years or more. We will see what happens to each when they are up for renewal. Looks like a great location for a distribution hub to deliver humanitarian aid in time of crises. I agree. I just have never seen the church do that. Now, if I'm wrong about that, please let me know. Let me know where the church bought a huge real estate complex, and then instead of using it to generate income, it used it to help others. All of these comments by people trying to reinterpret the church's actions are usually an attempt at members to try to justify these exorbitant real estate purchases. This industrial park is not being used for humanitarian aid. It's being used to generate revenue. And it's ironic how many times members come into the comments regarding these extravagant real estate purchases and fantasize that these properties are being used to help humanity, when in reality, they are just being used to bolster the church's shameful and fraudulently hoarded endowment. I understand the desire to try to reinterpret the church's actions to make them more palatable. It's just not reality. Let me play another quick video for you and show you some YouTube comments. The church has released its humanitarian report this year, John. How much did the LDS Church spend on humanitarian aid last year? And this is from feeding the hungry to helping to shelter refugees. The Utah-based faith is upping its charitable spending as it faces pressure to do more good with its massive wealth. John, it looks like the church has given out a lot more money this year than it had in times past, up to $1.3 billion. Is this a win for the church?
This story is an echo, a mirror image of the last story. The church just cannot be truthful. It's so sad. So yeah, it's according to the church. This is church self-reporting numbers. 1.3 billion. The majority of that is fast offering.
So here's the comment. Dude said it's from fast offerings like he was disgusted. Well, how exactly do you think churches make their income, bro? I mean, they don't manufacture anything. That is their income, offerings and tithes. My quick response back to him is you really need to watch the full show to get educated. Fast offerings are allegedly not used for church operations. Thanks for watching, dude. And actually, in contrast to what a lot of other religious organizations do, the church does have a great deal of commercial avenues with which it can generate income. Everything from some farms and ranches, which are for income generation, buying industrial parks where it receives rent and tenancy. The church also buys real estate plots of land, builds homes on those, and then rents those out to people. The church has hospitality. The church has a number of ways to generate income apart from fast offerings and from tithing, including the church's massive Ensign Peak endowment, which is somewhere around the neighborhood of $170 million, in which the church probably gains maybe $20 billion a year just from those investments. So the church doesn't need anyone to ever make another donation for as long as it lives, and it will be perfectly fine. I've got 2 more clips to play for you, plus some YouTube reactions.
This is impressive and noteworthy indeed. Yet when we juxtapose this figure against the church's estimated wealth of $265 billion, the context shifts. The humanitarian contributions, while substantial, represent only a small fraction of the church's immense wealth. This is not to diminish the church's efforts, but rather to create a broader perspective. We must also remember that without an external audit, we're essentially taking the church's word on these figures. Critical thinking becomes our ally here. It encourages us to question, to seek verification, and to understand the deeper implications of these numbers. It's not just about how much is given, but also about how much more could be potentially done. The LDS Church's charitable spending and wealth are both significant. But as always, it's essential to look beyond the numbers and understand the bigger picture.
Here's the YouTube comment. I mean, first off, I have no idea how you got that number. Net worth is hard to calculate, especially for such a big organization. Plus, there's all the things people forget about, such as building costs, missionary funds, buying the art and decorations used inside churches, and the chairs and stages, water bills, and more. Plus all the land tax and more. They may subsidize temple clothing sales for all I know. I mean, it just seems weird to throw a $200-something billion figure out when in 2019 they were only estimated at $100 billion. And half of that was an investment that you can't easily liquidate. That would mean out of the $1 billion the church spends annually, that would come out of $50 billion available to pay for all of the current church operations and expansion. First of all, if you want to know where I got my numbers, you could just ask. Second of all, we get our numbers from the Widow's Mite report, and you can watch our full episode to get educated free of charge. Now, there's no doubt about it, net worth certainly is hard to estimate, but the Widow's Mite report has done an absolutely fantastic job in evaluating the church's total valuation, which is currently sitting at approximately $265 billion. If you have an issue with how the Widow's Mite came to those numbers, then go ahead and present your counter argument, and if it's better than the model that we currently have, no problem. I'd be happy to change how I figure out the church's total net valuation. We haven't at all forgotten about the church's operating expenses. The church's operating expenses are probably around $67 billion per year, and about $1 billion of that is for temple maintenance and chapel maintenance. We haven't forgotten about anything. We've done our homework. and I'm specifically speaking of the widow's mite, has done its homework, and I'm piggy banking off of them. Now, he also talked about the church's land tax. The church is a tax-exempt organization and pays very little taxes, especially on its ecclesiastical buildings and temples and BYU campus and many other things. There are a few instances in the church's commercial ventures in which it does pay property taxes, but the church is given a massive tax break and pays very little property taxes. They subsidize temple clothing. Are we serious now? We're going to talk about temple clothes as some kind of an expense. I mean, we're talking about pennies on the dollar here. The church could really, you got to get real, dude. In 2019, the church was not estimated at $100 billion, far from it. Again, you need to take up the numbers with the Widow's Mite report. If you have counter evidence, then happy to hear it. Otherwise, you're just speculating, whereas my numbers are based in reality and the best available data. In 2023, the church allegedly gave $1.4 billion in humanitarian donations. Even if we accept this completely or mostly unverifiable claim, that's off of a total valuation of $265 billion. That's not 1%. That's not 0.5%. That's about 1/3%. Shame on you for defending fraudulent, greedy hoarders. Okay, I got 3 slides left for you. Here's from DRT again, who's frequently come into the comment section and trying to fact check me. He says, you're still whining about the little fine. The fine is compared to you getting a parking ticket for less than 1 cent. The reason you're a clown is because you paid. I doubt you had enough faith to continue doing it. And then you want to say on how they should use it. That's not how paying tithing works. If you want to say on how to spend tithing, join a small Christian church, be the top tithe payer, and you can say how much the church uses the funds. Whining is not a good look. Man up. I hope you enjoyed General Conference so far. I know you're watching. Most Exmos can't resist watching. I do like DRT. He really tries to take it to me, and I appreciate that. So first of all, this is a contemporary LDS news program, so of course we're going to be watching General Conference. Thanks for stating the obvious. Now, DRT, there's approximately 18 million Latter-day Saints on the face of the earth. Only about 4 million of them actually go to church. So that's a Exmo community of at least 13 million. But there's been many people who have disaffiliated themselves over the church for many years. Dozens of millions of people. And the vast majority of them will not be watching General Conference. So when you say most Exmos can't resist watching, I would not be surprised at all if the 100 million or so ex-Mormons on this planet right now, if less than 1% of them watch General Conference, I would be surprised if it was even 1%. It's probably much less than that. The church baptizes around 300 million people per year, and about 80% of those leave after a year. So the Exmo community continues to rise at a rate of around 200,000 per year, year in and year out. The vast majority of those people don't watch General Conference, but of course, we at the Mormon News Roundup are going to watch General Conference. This is a podcast about LDS current events. Thanks for stating the obvious, buddy. Now, this was in response to me already talking to DRT, as we discussed earlier, and I noticed he didn't engage with any of the points that I made. And that makes sense. It's tough to defend greedy, fraudulent hoarders. Instead, you want to attack me. Honestly, that is sad. So let me read and understand this, my friend. I didn't lie to the members and the feds about illicitly hoarding a dragon's hoard. I wasn't corrupt. I didn't create fake shell companies. I didn't defraud the members. I didn't set up company IP addresses to throw people off the trail. I didn't pressure mid-level managers to forge federal documents and potentially lose their trading credentials. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't cover anything up. I didn't fire the EPA people who were uncomfortable with the sham. I didn't hide DMBA assets. I didn't take no accountability for my actions. And I didn't shamefully hoard $300 billion. Thanks for thinking about me, though. Geron says the church also has to become self-efficient. I think he means self-sufficient. The church now is nothing like what it will be in the future. Hundreds more temples and meeting houses are coming. He says the church must become self-sufficient. Become? You cannot be serious. Church operating expenses are like $7 billion a year, and the church has fraudulently and shamefully hoarded $265 billion. So that's 90 years of operating expenses. Even if there were no other income sources coming in, even if there were no more donations, even if the church took everything out of Ensign Peak, even if the church's commercial ventures all didn't bring in any money, it's 90 years of operating expenses. The church still needs to become self-sufficient. You cannot be serious. And he talked about hundreds more meeting houses. My friend, the Mormon shrivel is real. Meeting house growth has come to a grinding halt. Yes, there could be more temples. There's no doubt about that. But meeting houses, get a clue. And he did respond back, and he said the quote fraud was because they had shell corporations follow the church instead of investing itself. Yes, the church will need the money in the future, and I'm sure they will use more than the $7 billion per year, to be honest. Number one, shame on you for defending fraudulent, greedy hoarders. Shame on you. You have an incredibly myopic take on this and are completely ignoring the 650,000 actual misstatements over the course of 22 years that the Widows' Mite report has documented. This isn't a one-time or one-issue thing. This was perpetuated. This fraud, this illegal sham was perpetuated on me and other members for 22 years. And if you defend them, as far as I'm concerned, you're complicit in it. The Widows' Mite report has literally refuted every one of your claims. You are just fundamentally ignorant, and I will dismiss you without further argument. Or how about this one? Mormon News Roundup. You people are so jealous you can't stand it. Other churches wishes their members actually tithe 10% so they could pay for their buildings when they're built. No other church has leaders smart enough to invest and save money for the hard times which will surely come. Our church leaders are truly inspired. My simple response to that is if your God inspired your church leaders to fraudulently and shamefully hoard $300 billion, that's no God I want to be a part of. And here's a final take. Someday, you and your community and your planet may need large-scale assistance, and you will be grateful for the amount of funds the church has wisely kept in reserve for your rainy day. And once again, I'm really offended by this line of thinking. Laugh out loud, man. You're going to say that in the future, the church may come to my need, ? In 27 years of Ensign Peak's existence, it has done absolutely nothing to help anyone except build a mall and bail out a church insurance company. Get real. So let me just give you last thoughts on the YouTube comment section. I have noticed that over the years, I have kind of gotten a little harsher in the YouTube comment section. And I do wonder if that's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. I really can't help it because the apologetics that go to church finances, I find to be incredibly distasteful. There's a lot of ignorant takes. There's a lot of wishful thinking. Well, maybe the church in the future is going to help other people. Yeah, maybe it will. But all I can say is what the church has done so far. And the church basically just looks out for itself. It doesn't engage in humanitarian activity that can be verified except for a very small portion of it. I find the church's actions here to be morally reprehensible. They're indefensible. And the people who come into the comment section and want to defend these fraudulent, greedy hoarders, I think they're just as complicit as the people who engaged in this fraud. I once again have a call to action that the First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and anyone else who is associated with the SEC fine needs to resign out of their position immediately so that the church can be led by people who are free from the stain of investment fraud. It's ridiculous that the church has to be led by these fraudulent, greedy hoarders, and I call for an immediate change in church leadership. The church considers this matter to be closed, but I do not. Thanks so much for watching the Mormon News Roundup. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and join us next time for another episode. So long.
When it comes to nicknames of the church, such as LDS Church, the Mormon Church, to remove the Lord's name from the Lord's church is a major victory for Satan.
Satan.